today for another edition of Justice Then, Justice Now. We have two very good guests today, Vanessa Rojas and Evelyn Bazon-Pappa. Vanessa is reaching out from San Diego area today, and Evelyn is reaching out from Barranquilla, Colombia. Okay, and I'm glad they're here. Ladies, nice to see you today.
Good to see you too.
Yes.
Good to be here.
I made it despite the rainstorm today from Miami. They let me on the plane. Anyway, this is going to be a unique show today because these two people know each other very well under adverse circumstances, but both of them have been very successful in getting out of that situation and moving forward. I'll start with you, Evelyn. Evelyn and I have a history of over 30 years now of knowing each other in different time warps, I guess you'd call it, of that. And I know her entire family, and you've seen episode 1, and there'll be more episodes on that also to talk about. And through Evelyn, I met Vanessa, who is a tremendous advocate. I say that because I always see her over LinkedIn all the time. And she is a professor at school and a mentor out there. And she is for advocacy for the first step and second chances of inmates in the correctional system. She knows everybody in California that's trying to get clemency, trying to get pardoned out there, and a very hard worker. And more important, she's a mother, and she has a very dear daughter to her that she cares for constantly, as every mother should. And I'm glad to have both of you ladies here today. And I guess we'll start this out. Evelyn's background, we know she was a sentenced federal prisoner or inmate rather, and she served 26 years in Tallahassee Federal Correctional Institution. And Vanessa also was a former federal inmate, and she served time, and I'll let her explain her situation. And the two of them encountered each other at Tallahassee, Florida, not at a Florida State game, but at the institution there, became friends, and Evelyn mentored Vanessa when she spent a while there. And I'll just leave it at that, and I'll let you talk first, Vanessa, if you could. Let the audience know your background, where you came from, and move it forward until you met each other, and your knowledge in the field is tremendous.
Thank you, Toby. I'm really grateful to be on here, and I want to thank you again for inviting us. So I'm not a professor.
I'm sorry. I thought you were.
Student.
You
it's
will
okay.
be.
I'm just a student, and I work here for Palomar Community College in the president's office. I'm also a rising scholar. So I guess a little bit about my background is I experienced childhood trauma at a very young age. So I was sexually molested at a very, very, very young age. And that kind of set me on a destructive path, which took me down a very dark time into addiction. So I got addicted to heroin and meth. During this time, I just was lost and gave birth to 3 kids. My youngest has special needs. It requires 24 hours of care. I was involved in a lot of domestic violence relationships. I was caught up in like a cycle that I could never break free from. And being a mother, a single mother, of the 3 children and my special needs daughter, you know, that was kind of like, it was really hard. It was hard. I'm very grateful that all three of them are alive. I'm grateful that I have them, they're all adults. I'm grateful that I'm able to be there, be present, and they're seeing me sober now. So I was in and out of jail for 20 years, I guess, maybe a little bit longer. I never really got off successfully off probation, for county probation. I ended up getting caught up in a federal indictment with 55 other defendants. And I got sentenced to 80 months in federal prison, and I pled guilty. It was a conspiracy to distribute heroin. And I was sent to FCI Tallahassee, which kind of was like something we weren't prepared for. Um, so I was sent there, and it pretty much was like one family crisis after another. Um, I was on a lot of medication at the time too, because I had a diagnosis of schizoaffective bipolar disorder, which I believe was all drug induced, because I never really gave my brain time to heal. So while I was out there, the first year was probably the worst year for me because I was so far. I've never been away from my family that long, not that far away. And I pretty much slept the first year of prison, just in denial, looking for a way to get closer to home. And I knew Evelyn because she worked in the chapel, and I spoke with her a few times. I would go to the service there a few times. I kind of was like in a state of searching for a meaning for my life, for why I ended up there, what I could have done different. So I spent like a lot of time reflecting on my past and my choices and really doing a lot of introspection. And I got off all my meds, which was something that I'm so grateful that I was able to do, but I kind of did it cold turkey. So I went through a lot of like discomfort. But I had the psychiatrist there was really a good psychiatrist, and he encouraged me. He backed me up 100% because I was very transparent about my situation and my goals and everything that was going on. So like I said, I was experiencing one family crisis after another, and at one point, I had lost all my faith and my hope when I didn't think I would have a family to come home to because every single member of my family was sick. And my mother was a primary caretaker of my special needs daughter. And my son had a cancerous tumor in his lung. My oldest daughter had Graves' disease, and my mom was like on her deathbed. And I was working in Unicor at the time, and I was in the back, and I distinctly remember this memory. I was in the back because I couldn't even be on the phone. I was like devastated, and I was crying, and I couldn't get through. It was a call center, so I couldn't even get through a phone call without crying. And so I spoke to the warehouse manager, and I said, "Look, I can't even like put me in the shoe, whatever. I can't work today, and this is what's going on." And I told her what was happening, and she's like, "Go sit in the back, take the day off." And I was back there, and I was just like crying. I couldn't pull myself together because I didn't have any hope, and this was maybe about a year and a half, 2 years into my 80 sentence bid. So then Evelyn comes up to me, and she just grabbed my face. She just came up to me. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get emotional.
No, please do.
She grabbed
People want to
she
hear
grabbed my
this.
face. She grabbed my face, and she just started kissing me on the cheeks, and she's telling me, "Don't give up. Don't give up. Whatever it is you're going through, don't give up." She's like, "I've been here 25 years and I still have faith, and I'm not going to give up." And she's just encouraging me. And that really like snapped me back into reality. And I'm thinking like, wow, what am I crying about? This lady's been here. She's like, "I have a life sentence. I've been here 25 years and I'm not giving up." It just snapped me back to reality. And I'm thinking like, wow, what am I crying about? I'm gonna go home someday. And I saw things differently from that moment. And I remember I had graduated RDAP, and they moved me over to the honor dorm, which was where Evelyn was at. So I think we just gravitated towards each other. You know, um our faith, Like I said, I had lost my faith, but then something happened while I was in prison during that time, where I had like a spiritual encounter, and everything changed. Everything changed, and I know, like it was apparent to everybody that something was different. And I think, without like getting into religion, because this isn't has nothing to do with religion. This has to do with a personal connection I have with God. And I think once you realize that there is something to believe in, it just gives you hope. And so it gave me hope, and I started helping Evelyn with things, emails and such. And one day I remember that I went into her cell. She wanted to talk, and she told me her whole life story. It was just me and her. She brought out document after document, and she was crying a lot, and I felt like I had to be strong for her. And I think I just knew Evelyn was going to get out. I just knew. And so there was a lot of prayer and fasting involved. And there was moments where things seemed hopeless, because I remember she was so sure she was going to get clemency from Trump. And I remember we watched Trump walk out. We watched him his last day in office. We watched him walk out into his new, I guess, resident, or not new his Mar-a-Lago residence. And Evelyn was devastated, and we're like, what happened? Like, what just happened? They pretty much said that it was going to happen. She was going to get clemency, and it didn't happen. It didn't happen. She didn't get clemency through Trump, and Evelyn was devastated. And I've
Oh, I
never
know.
seen Evelyn,
I know.
I've never seen her
I
devastated
know
like that.
I know the reason she didn't get clemency. We've talked about that, and it was a very poor decision, not by the president, but by somebody underneath him that lives in your state. I'll just say that. I don't talk politics, but the person lives in your state, okay? And we had a credibility problem. All right, that's all I'm going to say. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but I wanted to be clear.
It's okay. It's
Okay.
okay. So, I just kind of had that, like, knowing. I just knew in my core that Evelyn was going to get out on a compassionate release. And I remember telling her that. I said, Evelyn, you're not getting out on clemency. You're getting out on compassionate release, and I'm leaving right after you. And that's exactly what happened. I remember she came in to Unicorn. She was so happy, that they granted her compassionate release. She was like dancing. She was dancing, and the whole compound just celebrated that, because if anybody deserved that, it was her.
Yes. I was sitting in a van for 8 hours, so waiting for that order to come through. Okay.
My goodness.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah.
She knows.
And she, it took a minute for them to let her go, because I don't know what happened, but that day that she thought for sure she was leaving, I remember that day she was a wreck, because she's just waiting. They didn't want to release her because I guess there was a lot of media outside, and they ended up releasing her like in the middle of the night. But we got to say goodbye. We got to say goodbye, and it was during COVID, and it was one of the best things that I've ever been a part of.
Yeah.
I'm so
That's
grateful.
great.
So grateful.
She got to go to McDonald's too, so that was an
I-
extra treat. But well, it's about. I wanted to talk about you though. I have a couple questions before we go back to your past and the gang activity and the smuggling. What did you do to get where you are now? Obviously, you went to FCI Tallahassee and you had a religious experience, which I understand. But what programs turned you into, someday I'm going to be out and I'm going to turn my life around? What was available to you as an inmate?
I think, I took advantage of all the programs there, and I will stand by this 100%. the programs that I benefited the most from were the ones that were ran by the interns. Like, obviously I did benefit from RDAP because I learned a lot of things, and what I realized was when you're able to acknowledge something, that's when you're able to change it. So not knowing that these thoughts, these behaviors, these thought patterns, without acknowledging what they were, putting a name on them, was got me to like realize, okay, that's what it is. This is what's happening. So I did benefit from RDAP, but the most programming that I benefited from were the ones that were run by the interns. And that would have been like the cognitive behavior therapy, the CBT, the DBT, anger management, emotional
Can you go into
regulation.
that a little bit? Because some of the people aren't going to understand what each one of these programs entails. So can you give me a better idea and our viewers?
So yes, so cognitive behavior therapy focuses like on your thought patterns and it gives you tools. And I can't like exactly remember what it is. But I kept my books. I kept all my books, and I do a lot of like follow-up reading on it. But like the tools were like, I guess it's replacing a bad thought with a better one. So always being aware of your thoughts and being in the present, and I think that's important, like mindfulness, being mindful and always being in the present, because I catch myself, worrying about things that haven't even happened yet, and like with RDAP, it's about rational self-analysis, so that it's all up here, everything's up here, it starts up here. And I always talk about the 3 C's that I learned in RDAP is your conditions, your cognitions, and your choices. So your conditions, like the way you grow up, your surroundings, your environment, you don't have control of that, but that shapes your cognitions, that shapes your thought patterns. And then your thought patterns affect your choices. So when you're able to understand certain things up here, it helps you make better choices. So I think cognitive behavior therapy, a lot of the stuff that has to do with like your cognitions is what changed for me, I guess, what helped me have the awareness within myself that I needed to know where it all starts. It all starts up here, and the introspection and the reflecting that I did, once I was able to grasp it all, then it all made sense to me. This is why, oh, okay, this is why. This is why I do this. This is why I do that. So a lot of my time was spent reading a lot of the so-called self-help books, just learning about myself. So, the thing about prison for me was before I got there, I didn't know who I was because I didn't exist. And when I say that, because I was a shell, I was controlled by my addiction. So in prison, getting clean, that was probably the only good thing, was the relationships I made in prison, and the change that happened within me was I found who I was. I was able to I took my identity back. That the identity that was stolen from me from a very young age, my innocence, I found who I was in prison.
Okay. No, it's very well explained that they have these programs available. They're very, very important, and you took advantage of it, and I commend you on that. And that. Did you grow up in the San Diego area, or did you come from Mexico, or
I grew
where?
up in Vista. No, I grew up in Vista, California.
Okay.
My mom is from San Miguel, Jalisco. My dad's from Texas. So I grew up in Vista. I
Okay.
grew up not really having, I had everything I needed, but when your identity is taken from you, you start looking for an identity in things that don't really serve a purpose in your life, but destruction.
Mm-hmm. That's
Did you?
true.
No, I agree with that. And did you? How did you get the first time addicted to narcotics? How did that happen? Through a boyfriend or from a peer
Oh my
or
goodness.
that?
That actually, so I used to steal my dad's weed when I was really little. I used to steal his weed. I used to smoke his weed and drink alcohol. And then that led to just hanging out with older kids, and, dabbling with meth, dabbling with acid, and eventually heroin, which, older boyfriend. That's kind of what happened.
Okay. And how old were you when this started?
My first, like, true addiction started when I was 11.
Okay.
I got addicted to meth
I
at
know
11.
I know our audience is going to be shocked with that because usually it
Yeah.
formulates junior high school, but you would have been in what, fourth or fifth grade back then?
Gosh, I don't know. Probably maybe fifth, sixth grade was when I really started
Okay.
picking up
Still, that's
drug
in
use.
pre-junior high,
Yeah.
and that.
Junior high, I was a full-blown addict at junior high.
Okay. All right. And was alcohol involved with this too, or just
Mhm.
narcotics?
There was alcohol involved, but not like on a daily basis. It's just whatever I could get my hands on was what I was gonna what I was gonna ingest. So
Okay.
like if we would go camping with the family and friends in the summer and there was beer in the cooler, we're still in the beer and we're drinking it and we're getting drunk.
Okay. Did you get involved with gang activities? We have talked previously, and would you
Yeah.
explain how that came about?
Um, it was more of the people that I hung out with, and the father of my kids. Um, it got more, I guess I was more involved whenever he was locked up, I would get more involved because he wasn't around. Um, and just, because he had like, I guess, status on the streets is what people would call it. And so people respected me because of him. So when he got locked up and we went our separate ways, I had to like earn my way, I guess, earn my own reputation, I guess, would be a way to put it without having to ride on his reputation. So, yeah, it was all drug related. Everything was the streets were not the same as when I was younger. It was all about drugs and basically.
Okay. The reason and this show is going to be about, it's about firsthand. It's not, we don't have political talking heads. We don't have presidential appointees in Washington. We don't have people that so-called know-it-all experts because they're not. And that. So the reason I say this is I'm going to have on tomorrow the special agent in charge who was in Arizona about mostly about drugs and border crossings. And another guest that I'm going to have is an expert on gangs who was the presidentially appointed U.S. Marshal in San Antonio, and he was the head of the gang unit there. So you're inside with this. I think will blend well with that for the public to understand that it starts out with addiction. And I think you've pointed that out very, very well. So when you were involved, and when did your ex-husband go to jail? Where your was he your husband or your boyfriend or the father of your children?
He was just the father. He was just
Okay.
I mean, so a lot of times, um, I think a lot of it's also because of relatives, so you have relatives that are involved, so you just are kind of born into it, I guess, in a way. The father of my kids started getting more involved when he started getting arrested as a teenager. Um, but his thing was always like he was the drug dealer, but he also was involved in gang activity, and those two things go hand in hand. And also when you grow up in poverty, you're more susceptible to getting drawn into that life, and as young kids, you want to prove yourself. So you are the first one to, get involved in the worst things to get a reputation. And
Hmm.
he was involved in a lot of stuff at a very young age.
How
And so,
okay? How old were you when you had your first child?
I was 16. So I was
Okay.
14 when I met him. I
Okay.
was 14 when I met him. We got together and I got pregnant at 15 and had her at 16.
Okay. There's a pattern of abuse here with women, that's happened, and it does that. I mean, when I learned that Evelyn, she was married at 14, and she had her quince after that. That's just off the charts, and people don't understand that. So you were, lack of a better word, enthralled in this lifestyle along with your addiction, and you brought up how it came about. How did it get worse? What happened after that where you got the attention of law enforcement?
Hmm. How did it get worse? Meaning like what led up to the indictment? Or
Yeah, yeah. What was the indictment all about?
you know, what got worse was my appetite for the drug got worse. So then I started getting involved with people south of the border. And that just was through mutual contacts, right? But then my connections down there got like pretty, it was pretty crazy. It was a pretty crazy time from what I can remember, because a lot of it, there's years where I don't remember a lot. A lot of it's a blur, a lot of it's a blackout. And I was doing some pretty crazy things that, like, even now when I think about it, like what was I thinking? I'm going to Mexico by myself at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I don't even like not even knowing where these people are, just directed to go a certain place. And I saw a lot of things. I saw a lot of things down there, and I don't even talk about everything that I was involved in. I don't talk about, and I probably never will. I probably never will. Um, but it was a pretty scary time. But I thought I was invincible, maybe because when you're on drugs, you just don't think about the dangers. And I survived it, through the grace of God. I survived those things. And it was that's pretty much what it was my appetite for the drug. It wasn't had nothing to do with the money. Had nothing to do with the money. It just had to do with, for me, it had to do with the high, just
Okay.
having enough drugs to get high on.
Yeah. When were you indicted, and was it under the conspiracy case? Like you said, there were multiple
Yeah.
defendants.
Yeah, I got indicted in 2017, and I didn't even know I was being watched by the feds.
Okay.
I didn't even know. Like, that thought never occurred to me. Not, I mean, I guess in a way I always knew I was going to end up in prison. I just never in a million years thought I would get indicted federally and end up in federal prison.
Had you been in prison before
No,
for
just jail.
arrest? Just jail. And what was
Just jail.
possession charges or?
Possession. The majority, I have a pretty thick jacket. But the majority of those arrests are all like violation of probations. So like being remanded back into jail to because I violated for dirty, and I had like I remember one time one of my probation officers like, this is your 12th dirty. I don't know what to do with you. 12 dirties in a row. That meant like she let me slide 12 times, and she's like, I don't even know what else to do with you. She ordered me to go in front of the judge that day. So from her office, I remember this because I know this happened a few times. I went from her office to report to the judge, and I'm sitting there in front of the judge, and he's looking, at the file in front of him, and he's shaking his head, and he's just like, He's like, he looked at me like Mrs. Rojas. He's like, I've never seen a toxicology report this alarming. He's like, I don't even know how you're alive right now.
Yeah.
I don't know how you're standing up, breathing. He's like, I have to put you in jail to save your life. He's like, I hope you understand that's what I'm doing. Like, I'm trying to save your life. And that happened a few times.
And so this was in 2017. And
Well, that time, what I'm talking about, that was
no,
in
this is
2015.
prior. I understand.
Yeah.
You know, and you were indicted where? Out of this Southern District of California?
The
Okay.
Southern District of California. The name of the indictment was called Operation No Worries.
Okay. So you just came, you were sentenced, you were in pretrial, and then you were sentenced and surrendered, or the marshals took you out to Tallahassee. How did that work? Or BOP?
Okay, so I got out on pretrial. My mom put up the property to bail me out.
Okay.
Um, so she bailed me out. I got out. I got picked up by pretrial. They took me straight to a program. And then I was out, I think it was 10 months, and I had to report for sentencing. And I reported for sentencing on October 10th, which happens to be my mother's birthday.
Oh boy.
And so October 10th, 2017, I reported for sentencing, and the judge sentenced me to 80 months, which was the lower end of my guidelines. And I remember he gave me permission to hug my mom, and before they took me back. And I have never seen my mom that devastated in her life. That look haunted me. It still haunts me. When I hugged her, it was the look of utter despair. And my worry was that my mom was not going to survive my prison sentence, and that my special needs daughter was going to end up in the system. But that's not what happened. My mother's still alive by the grace of God. And all three of my kids are alive. I'm a grandma now. I have two granddaughters.
Wow. Great.
And but definitely Tallahassee.
Grandbabies, right? That's what Damaris
Grandbabies, yeah,
calls
they're
them. Yeah.
babies. They're
Grandbabies.
babies.
Grumbies.
What
Grandbabies.
happened in Tallahassee, not just the good things, the bad things that happened there is kind of what put me on this path of advocacy and wanting to change policy, is when I saw how the system, from the inside. When I saw how the system is from the inside, and the corruption and the gaps that need to be filled, and the lack of accountability on the BOP. So, and these women that are stuck behind the walls, that deserves, women like Evelyn that are stuck there because of the sentencing policies, women that are rehabilitated and are helping other women that are stuck behind the walls and have no avenue to get out. They have been, their clemencies have been denied, their motions have been denied, and there's just no way out for them, and they're just taking up space. And when they could be out here making change happen out here, and it's just very unjust. And that's kind of what put me on the path to education. And I just knew that just open that door, let me out. And I promise, I made a promise to God that I promise you get me out of here, I'm gonna make sure that everybody that comes into my path is gonna benefit from knowing me one way or another, and that I'm gonna somehow get in a place where I'll be able to change the policy and help these women and men that are stuck behind the walls, help them get out and keep them out.
So our viewers know, Tallahassee is the maximum security prison. There are some really, really bad female prisoners that are in there. I mean, you have examples like here that have been rehabilitated and they're out, but there are people that should not get out. I mean, I feel, this is my personal opinion, if you kill a cop, you're gone. If you're in there because you molest children and they're killed, you're gone. But it seems to me, And you guys were in the honor section, which, would you explain that a little bit so our viewers understand what the honor section is?
Evelyn, you want to take that?
Damaris, go ahead. Anybody?
Somebody?
Well,
Anybody?
both of us, we are.
Okay, I'll share. The honor side was mainly for people that behaved well inside the prison. And Toby, I respect your view, and even being on both sides, because remember, I always share with you
Yes,
that
I
my
know.
father was a police officer
yes.
for over 34 years, and I was also at the same time, I got in trouble when I was young. I ended up in prison, and that's how I met Evelyn. And I believe in the public's protection. Okay, so I agree with your point that you're right. Everybody
Certain
does
people.
not deserve to get out.
Yes.
And the problem with the BOP modus operandi is because they actually put so many people together
I
with
know.
so many
It's crazy.
level of security. And I always had a problem with that. And when we're inside, I had one of my good friends, Mark Fairlane, which you met over the phone.
Yes.
We created a program. It was called the I Am program because we wanted to help people coming in. That way, the people that were waiting to actually prey on these people would have that opportunity to prey on the people. You know, they were. I always mention, remember, inmates and convicts is two different things. So I believe in crime deterrence, but at the same time, this is a major business, and there are real people behind the four walls that should not be in prison for 10, 20, 15 years life. You know, I think the budget for the Bureau of Prisons is like $50 billion. They don't even invest that kind of money in education in the United States of America. So yes, inside the four walls, they were the honor unit where people that behaved well were recompensed and went in there in different, it was more rooms instead of cubicles. I mean, this didn't feel like a hotel either, right? Because you're secluded and away from family.
They made a song called Hotel California.
Yeah, I always wonder what that song meant. Because my Puerto Rican brain, I'm like, what does that mean?
I grew up in the
Is that a
70s,
ghost
so
or
the
something?
Eagles. Yeah, the first time I heard it, I was like, wait a minute, what's this about? Prison? And I said, no. And then I listened to the words, and yeah.
Yeah, so the honor unit, it was to allow people that behaved well, there were nicer rooms, and we kept it very clean. However, it didn't stop from, prison is a really bad place to be, but at the same time, it could be a place to save people, okay? To save the public from all these crimes that are being committed, you know? But at the same time, I love the fact that we're bringing these conversations to the table to bridge the gap.
Yeah, this is a criminal justice program. It's, I think, got everybody's point of view, and, you know, and it has the extremes on both and in between. And, you know, when this was first discussed with the producer, Jeff, we talked about this, and I said, no, I know the cops, you know, I know the agents, but at the same time, I've learned about the inmates, you know, and I understand that. And so we're trying to create a balanced program where we have not just one side or this and that, we have everybody on here, you know, and like today, I don't know if you've seen our second episode came out with Paul Pelletier.
When you sent me the message, I looked it up. Didn't get a chance to listen to it, but I did see his face on the video. So
Yeah, when you watch it,
I will watch it.
It's very, I think, entertaining. You know, I've known him a long time, and
I agree with that too.
yeah, if you watch it, I think everybody will enjoy watching him as the prosecutor hat, the defense hat, you know, the stuff that he did. He was a pioneer. So with that, but no, I think it's great you guys are here because there were problems in Tallahassee. I know from listening to everybody on what was there.
Major.
No, I know.
Problems.
I know. I've heard the female point of view from Amy from Dublin and what happened there and the transfers and everything. So it's a learning experience for me too. You know, I was a marshal for 8 years.
Yes.
So I went to, you know, well, now it's Supermax in Colorado, but the one that was in Marion, Illinois, I've handled the Aryan Brotherhood. I've handled all the
Yes.
prison
Yes,
gangs
it's
and everything. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good conversation.
And if I may add, if you allow me, Toby, one thing that I learned is that because they were amazing staff, they were really amazing staff in Tallahassee that we've become friends with, and I still talk to them even years out. And what was the difference between the amazing staff and the others is that the amazing staff believed in people going into the system as a total institution for rehabilitation, okay? And they used their tools given by the Bureau of Prisons to facilitate rehabilitation. But then you had the ones that just wanted to punish the inmates.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not their place. You're there to just do your job, right? The protection and safety and security, but you don't punish people because you already punished. You have a sentence and you go in there to do your sentence, right? To serve your sentence. And that was a major difference. So I think the training that a lot of the staff receive can make a whole difference as well. I saw people that were, going there and become very rebellious for things that were done to them by the not so amazing staff.
Yeah, I mean, that's. I looked at it when I was an agent. It was strictly professional business. I didn't take any vindictive or joy out of incarcerating somebody or doing an investigation. It was my job. I mean, that's what I did. My job was to do that. And in a correctional environment, yeah, you have to stop violence within an institution, because if it spreads, like I remember in Atlanta in 87, they had, I think it was 87, 91, they had the big takeover of the whole prison. And it was a bloody conflict, But no, there should be no, there's a rule that I always had, and I think a good cop has. When the cuffs are on, everything's over. That's it. If the guy's fighting you, you defend yourself. But when the cuffs go on, that's the end. That's what I was trained under. So, but let me go back, and I'm jumping around because I have 3 people that are experienced, and that's great for the viewers. When you came to Tallahassee, you obviously came from a different culture on the border in California to there. I mean, was it a big change for you, Vanessa, coming from there to, shall we say, redneck land,
It was a culture shock for me. So, and that was like the first thing that I noticed, because I guess from what I understand, Tallahassee is considered part of the Deep South. People, without sounding, I don't want this to come off as sounding mean, but I think the best way to describe it is just a whole different breed of women. Put it that way.
Yes.
A different breed of women. It's not anything I was used to.
Mm-hmm.
So in California, I grew up around sureños, sureñas, chicanas, chicanos. There's a level of, I guess, respect, street code that we live by. Forget it, because in Tallahassee, it's different. It's different. Oh my gosh. So, what immediately caught my attention about the institution was the way some of the COs interacted with some of the incarcerated women. it's like sometimes you would hear the conversations like they're just kicking it on the block. I just really didn't care to be accepted though. I was in a place where, you know what, I wasn't wanting to make friends really. I didn't want to make friends. I just wanted to get through my sentence, my bid. I was miserable the first couple years there. Miserable. I wasn't good company. I was just miserable.
How many years were you incarcerated?
4.
Okay, there, and you had a compassionate release also.
Yes, so
Can you
that's the
explain that,
interesting
how
part.
that happened? Yeah.
You know, my case is not unique in any way, but it has its twists and turns. So I got the Second Chance Act, which was a year of halfway house, but I also got the year off for RDAP. I didn't ask for the year of halfway house. It was like it was just really weird. I think because I was holding them accountable to a lot of things without writing them up. I was holding them accountable to a lot of things, and they basically I joke about this because it's funny when I think about it. I had a notepad that I carried around with me everywhere. And anytime I'd speak to a staff member, I would have my questions ready. Like, okay, I'm gonna go to mainline. I'm gonna speak to the CM. What was it? The CMC. I'm gonna speak to the C. I have my questions ready,
What's the
and
CMC? Is that like the
what would
SIS
that be? The
or?
person? No, the person over the case managers, like
Oh,
the
okay.
person over the unit managers, the
Okay.
case manager. So anytime I had a question, I had my notepad with me and I would go up, I had my questions ready and I would write down the date and time and I would ask my questions and I would write down everything they would tell me, like verbatim, I'd write it down, all the answers. And if I knew they were wrong, I would like back it up with policy. Well, according to program statement, da 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 da. Well, actually, this is what's supposed to be. So I was holding them accountable to a lot of things because we were being lied to about a lot of things. And I would always follow up with an email. But I was keeping a record of every conversation I had with them. Everything that was happening there, I was keeping a record of it. I never wrote anybody up. I never wrote any staff member up because I know how retaliation works. I know what happens when you do
I
that.
was about to say that. Yeah.
I didn't write them up. I wrote one incident up. It was an incident. It wasn't a staff member. It was a situation, which I did write it up, which we didn't get fed one night. During COVID, they forgot to feed us because they were bringing the food to us and they forgot to feed us. So I wrote that up, but that was the only thing I ever did. I didn't write any staff members up. I did write the inspector general. Got some mail out to the inspector general. But I was keeping a record of everything. And so when I asked my case manager, well, how much halfway house time are you going to give me? He's like, well, we're going to give you the whole year because we're trying to get rid of you as soon as possible. And
I thought about
I
that
took that,
I knew that was coming.
Yes.
Go ahead.
right? Like I took that like, okay, well, I must be doing something right because women here beg for a year of halfway house. They beg for it. And you will hear them in there like stroking the case manager's ego to try and get them to give them a year of halfway house. I wasn't going to do that. I wasn't going to stroke anybody's ego or kiss anybody's behind to get it. So that was handed to me. That the year of halfway house was handed to me. Now, I had wrote a letter during COVID. So what happened was I wrote a letter to Families Against Mandatory Minimums during COVID. Telling them my situation, that I felt like I was a candidate for a compassionate release. Never heard anything back. So when during like the George Floyd thing during COVID, when just the nation was just shutting down, like the mail system was getting disrupted, there was like protests, there was all this stuff happening, and I just knew that I had to get this compassionate release motion in front of this judge. So I hand wrote mine. I hand wrote it because they didn't even like,
This
we were
is
on lockdown.
This is the same judge that was hard-nosed that sentenced you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Go ahead.
The same judge. I hand wrote my motion. I even spelt some words wrong because I didn't have like a dictionary or anything. No access to law library, nothing, because all the computers were we weren't allowed to leave the unit. So, and the stamp situation was another crisis. They were running out of stamps. The store didn't have stamps. So I was in a hurry to get this motion out because I knew that the country was shut down. The courts were not like taking in people from the public. They're just doing some weird, I guess, online courts and stuff. And I mailed that motion out just in faith, that hoping and praying that it was going to get to my judge. Now, remember, I said I had wrote a letter to FAM, so I'd never heard anything back from FAM. So then I still hadn't got my halfway house date yet. So this was during COVID, I hadn't got my halfway house date yet. So the government responded, of course, denying my motion, or opposing it. And then the judge replied, denying my motion because he said I didn't exhaust my administrative remedies. But he left the door open for me to refile. That day that I got a denial from the judge, I just kind of like, you know what, I'm just going to do my time. I'm kind of just done with this. And there's so many other people that need help. And I know I was helping Evelyn. I was helping a lot of the other women there, with their like administrative remedies, with their emotions and stuff like that. And, so I just left it alone. That same night, I got called back to get some legal mail, which was a letter from an attorney who FAM reached out to, and she agreed to take on my case pro bono. So she filed a compassionate release motion. It sat on the judge's desk for 9 months. So during that time, that's when I got my halfway house time. So I was already out the door. They flew me to San Diego. I checked into the halfway house. And then my oldest daughter ended up in the hospital, like almost dying. And that was when I'm like, why is this judge not letting me go? Like, he's still sitting on my motion. I'm already halfway out the door. So I called my attorney. I'm like, look, what can we do? My daughter's in the hospital. She's going to have emergency surgery tomorrow. And she's like, well, it's not going to hurt to file supplemental motion. So let me just get that. And then at the time, the halfway house was not allowing us to visit or leave or do anything like that other than go to work, which made no sense to me because they don't want us to have any social visits, but they want us to take public transportation to work. This is during COVID lockdown. That was their excuse. So I went and I spoke to the person that was in charge there at that night. He was, nobody liked him. He was another tough one, another one like that was really mean. So I worked up the nerve to talk to him. I got in the med line. I didn't take meds, but I got in the med line because I knew he was in the room and I wanted to get him alone. I didn't want to ask in front of anybody, but I was gonna tell him when he got to me. I went in there. I said, look, I don't mess around. I'm not, you see me, I don't get in trouble. I'm about, getting through. I go, but I need your help. It took everything out of me to talk to this man because he was the type of person that he wouldn't even look at us in the eyes. He had so much disdain for us, and he treated us that way. So I looked at him. I'm like, I need your help. And this is what's happening. My oldest daughter's in the hospital. She's going to have emergency surgery in the morning, and I'm about to get an escape charge because I need to go see her. I don't know if she's going to make it out of surgery. Please help me. If not, I'm leaving, and I'm letting you know. Well, he made it happen, and I was able to go be with her twice. They let me out to see her twice, which I'm very, very grateful that I was able to be there for her. So the judge ended up giving me a compassionate release because of that supplemental motion. So I did get a compassionate release, and I had to serve out the remainder of my sentence on home confinement, which was fine. I got my compassionate release. And I thank God for FAM. I thank God for my attorney and just everybody that's helped me along the way.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Amazing.
It is. It is. And are you going to work towards your clemency now? Is that the next goal that you have, Vanessa?
Well, my next goal is I'm filing for early termination of probation. So that's in the process right now. I'm filing for early termination of probation. I think I've done above and beyond what has been required of me on my conditions of probation. I do so much that the public doesn't even know about. I know you see what I post on LinkedIn and Facebook and Instagram. I do so much more that I don't even share with everybody. I'd go above and beyond, and not just because it's just my passion. It's just my passion. And I think my calling in life is to be a vessel and just to help people. So I'm trying to get off early. Once I'm off early, I definitely am going to be filing for a pardon eventually.
Good. Okay. It's a great story.
Great
Really.
story.
It's not a story, it's reality.
Reality.
Okay. And I don't think people realize this, you know?
You know what I love about her story is the resilience and her just not giving up. And I think it was my experience. A lot of women, they just gave up. You know, we're women are different than men. We're not made to be so tough like that. And I saw so many women with depression.
Really? They're not?
Oh, well,
They're not
don't look
supposed to
at
be
me like
tough?
that, because I know exactly what you're trying to say when you look at me like that.
No, I'm laughing. You know? I'm laughing.
Stop it, Toby.
Jeff, don't put this on. I've had 2 Hispanic ex-wives, and they were really tough.
Okay, but maybe your definition of tough
Don't cover me up,
it's
Evelyn.
not the same
Yeah.
definition of tough. I remember when I first went to the county jail when I was really young, they didn't even have panties for women. So if you were on your cycle, you couldn't even have
But
panties.
the men didn't use them up, right? That's
Well, because
I'm
initially
making
the
a joke.
system,
That's a bad joke. He's laughing at me.
the system,
Oh
you
my
know,
God.
back in the days, I'm pretty sure when you were in the system, there were not a lot of women incarcerated. You know, the system was never really built for women.
No,
you know,
you had to get a matron to sit there all night.
that's
somebody.
right. So it has taken a long time for the system to evolve. And I worked with it was a parenting class, and I did that for 4 years. I was very, very, very much involved in the community when I was in Tallahassee. I worked with a lot of staff, and because I was bilingual, and there were a lot of women from South America and everywhere that didn't speak the language, you know, and I can share that with Vanessa and Evelyn. We love people. We love to help people.
You obviously had very good instructors in Tallahassee that taught women that didn't speak any English how to speak good English.
That's right. And then I'm funny with you.
It's so
We'll
funny.
talk after this. And so the point is, you know, her resilience, I think it was amazing.
No, it is.
And I saw so many women just give up, and they were just so depressed, that despair. I think I've never been around so much despair in my life. Like the depression, people will walk around and you could sense that darkness and it's just whatever they carried. And when I worked with she was a community leader in Tallahassee. I worked with her for 4 years, and we would do a lot of assessment. And in our classes of 20, 30, or 40 women, the amount of children between all of them will add up to sometimes 100. Like, how in the world can you have that amount of women with that amount of biological children? Okay? And who takes care of those children? It's usually the parents,
It's the grandmother.
the
You know
grandmothers.
that.
I know that. I know. My pocket says it right now.
Yeah.
We're all 4. And
Yeah.
and so do they have resources to help women? I think they do. Can they have more and do more? Definitely, because most of these women at some time in their life will be released back to society. We can be your neighbors, right? Okay, we're friends, right? And it will make a whole difference in going back to those children and raising the children and breaking that cycle of incarceration and recidivism. And gosh, we can talk about it all night. So I definitely commend, Vanessa. I have never heard her story fully, and I'm just thinking about how resilient, and I can't even imagine how the staff will react. And that's what I thought. I'm like, they gave her that whole year of halfway house because they wanted to get rid of her. Like, oh my God, here she comes again with the pad and she's gonna write it down. I can't even see that.
What she's saying, and I can follow this, you wore them down. That's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
You wore them
Yes.
down, and the same thing with your compassionate release.
Yes, amazing.
That's a wild story. No, it's I've seen your work, and the short time I've known you, it's very commendable. You're in a state that I wouldn't want to live in personally. Okay, and I think without saying why, I just like it here in sunny Florida, and that. Okay. Are you still on parole or probation, or is that done? I wasn't following that.
I'm still on federal probation.
For how
I
long?
have
How much longer?
I have about 4 years left, I believe, a little less than 4 years. So I got sentenced to 80 months with 6 years of probation, federal probation. So I have that much time left.
Are they letting you, because of your advocacy work, are they allowing you to travel and do that?
Yes,
That's great.
I actually have a really, really supportive probation officer. I've been blessed. I've been so blessed in so many ways. And I thank God for that. I have a really supportive probation officer who approves because she knows what I'm about, and I think I get offended when my integrity is being questioned. So I have enough with probation, right? And so that's what it was in the beginning. Because they didn't know me, so they know that I've been so consistent that she doesn't question my integrity because I'm so straightforward with them. And she knows what I'm about, and I have so much proof of what I do. Like when I went to seek an attorney to file to get off probation early, I went there ready with everything I needed, and I had pictures to prove it. I had awards, I had certificates, and I just sat there. We're in this conference room, and I'm like, look, you guys represented me on my compassionate release. I thank you for that, but this is why I'm here. I want to file early because I've done this. Bam, I threw a picture down. I met this senator. Bam, I threw a picture down. I've been here, I've been there. I presented at this conference. I'm doing this. I had like a whole pile of stuff to show him, and his eyes just got really big. And he's just like, I mean, for a good 45 minutes, I'm just talking about all the stuff I've done since I've been out. I've been out 2.5 years, and every week I have something new to like add. Okay, well, this is what I did this week. This is what I did. This is what I'm doing. This is what's going on. And he was just like, wow. He's like, I'm going to beg my supervisor to take your case. He's like, this is why. Your case is why I do what I do. This is the reason. And he's like, he was just so impressed. And it's not that I was trying to impress him. I was just showing him, look, this is what I'm doing. This is why I need to get off. Because now probation is a hindrance because I can't always get a hold of my probation officer to ask to travel outside of the county, and I have to ask for permission. I have to submit a form, and sometimes she's gone wherever they go for trainings for sometimes up to weeks. So, and I'm not saying it's her fault, it's her job. She's not always going to be there, but sometimes I have to do like last minute requests to travel for my job. And so I don't always get those approved. So now I'm getting asked to go to other parts of the world now. So I've been asked to go to the UK. I've been asked to go to Australia to speak. And now this is just cut me loose already. So God willing, that's going to happen soon too.
How long have you been drug free?
So my clean date is going to be November 9th. It'll be 7 years.
Okay.
So I got over 6 years, 7 years. This is the longest since I was 11.
Okay.
The longest.
Okay. That's great. That's great. Evelyn, you're too quiet. I think the grandbabies are in the background. It's obvious that you're playing the role of grandmother and doing this too. So, yeah.
We need to bring her to the US.
Well, I think
It's time.
I think there's a good chance that people will support that, and that. So,
Time.
I mean, she had another birthday yesterday, so that's she's trying to catch up to somebody that's close to 70, but we won't talk about that.
When Damaris right now was talking about the despair in prison, the hopelessness, the despair, it just brought me back to that memory of that moment when Evelyn came up to me when I was in that moment of despair, when she just was holding my face and kissing me on the cheek, telling me not to give up. That is what I needed to get the fight back in me.
That's right.
That moment was so pivotal for me. And that's why, Evelyn is just part of my heart. She always will be.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I was able to reunite everybody here. I mean, the technology, thank God for Jeff, because
I know, right?
and
Yeah.
he knows what he's doing with the podcast business, and I got to give a shout out to Beth too, of course, because she's the straw that stirs the drink with this operation. And that we interviewed the head of DEA in Mexico City and Bogota the other day. I worked cases with him back in the early 90s, and an amazing person. And he seems to really fear the border now with fentanyl coming in. It's just the worst drug of all time. And the laxness, I mean, you can put something in China, ship it to Mexico, disguise it, and just bring it in and kill people. That's what it does. It kills people. Okay?
The statistics, over 125 people are dying of fentanyl
It's the
overdoses
population
every
of
single day.
Lakeland, Florida. That's the population of that. So I'm hoping that I'm a conservative guy. I am. And I hope we get back to the interdiction that we had and everything else. And, I found in doing these interviews and the future ones that have responded positively to me, they realized that I was doing my job. And if I had to do it again, I'd do it the same way, And like I said, everybody deserves a second chance, except for the categories that I laid out for you before, and hopefully we get this message across, because I see too much in the media now where you're either on one side or the other,
Exactly.
of the criminal justice system.
And I'm glad you bring that up, because that's why I'm always really behind the scenes, and I've talked to you about it, because I strongly believe in crime deterrence and the safety of the public, right? Because I have children, I have grandbabies, but we lost that balance. You have the people that were released from prison. I've heard so many of them just bash law enforcement and talk so bad about the system, and then the other way around. And this is not to bring any controversy. We're trying to bridge the gap, have the conversation, so we can have just programs and solutions for the real issues that are really in our backyard now. Right?
Oh yeah, they got to be solved. They have to be.
For example, first we have to definitely, and like you say, you conservative, and I'm a conspiracy theorist, right? So I am a conservative as well. And
I know you are.
And in the border, we definitely have to secure a border, because all these drugs that are getting into the streets right now. But at the same time, we don't have enough drug programs now. Like, you have to have money, you have to have insurance. There's not really hardly any homeless shelters. So we have a major drug addiction in society right now, but there are not enough answers there either. So it works both
So
ways. So this is amazing.
It's this demand here in the United States. That's a big problem. That's why the drug cartels are in business, because
Yes.
the demand is so high here in the U.S.
It is.
It's what it is. It's just off the charts now. And,
Never,
and the
there's
solution-
no other part of the world that there's so much
No.
drug consumption.
No, and we've been the leader for almost 60 years now with that, over and over. But the borders, I think everybody would agree that, that needs to be solved pronto. I mean, very much so.
Now, I heard somebody saying something about this being something that is done on purpose to weaken our society. And I look at it, I'm like, well, maybe it's not, but maybe it is. Like, I don't know, right?
We'll find out.
There's so much going on that you're like, is this designed on purpose?
We'll find out.
Right?
We'll find out very soon. I just, I retired from ICE.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm not going to be impartial. I'm retired supervisory special agent with ICE. I think you know where I stand on how to solve the problem. Okay, I think you need to build a few things. You know what I'm saying? And that's unfortunate, but we have to screen people coming in. We have to make sure that we're not letting what I think is the big thing is terrorism. What's
like
terrorism going to be
domestic-
like? No, any kind of
any
domestic and international. That's the whole thing with it. But I'm so glad you came on, Vanessa, because also I look forward to, she's made referrals on people that I think will be fantastic to discuss. You're a very trusted person with all of them. Otherwise, they wouldn't. And you've dedicated yourself. In other words, they wouldn't come on here. So I think that in the short time that you've been out, and that your goals and ambitions are very, very, very positive, And I would tell you, I don't know what kind of relationship you had with the agents that worked your case. Maybe you should reach out to them too, because they can only help. Okay? Because I have a couple people coming on males that received life sentences, and their agents supported them years later. Later. Like 30 years later, they supported them.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe something you and I can talk about in the future. But
We'll see.
we'll see.
I'm always open for a conversation, even if it's I'm just open. I'm open for the conversation.
No, it probably will be a good conversation, now. Maybe back then it wouldn't have been a good conversation. I always kid around with Evelyn because she didn't speak English back then, but I understood Spanish.
I can imagine.
What?
She probably just mentioned your name from the A to the C to the B.
I'm sure it was a different tone in 1995. Way different. But anyway, this has been great.
Yes.
I'm glad.
I'm so glad I made it, Toby, because I was stuck at work.
You're a
I'm like, but I had
workaholic.
to.
Am
I?
I know she's very
she
tired.
is. You are.
Well, I remember I'm sales manager, so I have to be there.
Oh, I know.
Gotta be
Heavy is thee that wears the crown, right?
Gotta wear it. Gotta wear it.
I'm coming to Florida in October.
It's good to
All right,
hear.
well, looking forward to see you then.
I'm going to come to San
Yeah, I'll be
Diego.
down there.
I have a friend that was a police officer. He's going to be on. He's the one that trained me in 1976, and
That was a year
wow.
after
He
I was
lives-
born, Toby.
That's a born what?
I was born.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. And he lives in Carlsbad, and I go out every year to see him. And I haven't been out yet, but we were talking, Vanessa, and I'm going to go out. And,
I love it.
And that he's a real character. He's you'll just love him when he's on. He was a disc jockey cop. He was He was
wow.
he was different. And,
So he would play like bad boys, what you gonna do?
no, he didn't play that. He played like doo-wop. Okay, you know what doo-wop is in New York. That's the street corner stuff. So he played that kind of stuff. He's still got the same. Oh, if he hears this, he's gonna kill me. Same hairstyle that when I met him.
Wow.
Yeah.
He's waxed.
Fonzie, remember Fonzie from
The-
Happy Days? Yeah, that
No.
kind of hairstyle. I've had the same hairstyle too. I watched
and
Saturday.
what about
No, I had a mustache in the '80s, but
Okay.
I saw Saturday Night Fever with John Travolta. Nothing changed. Nothing changed at all.
He was the coolest guy back then.
Oh, he was.
Everybody wanted to be him in the Fonz.
Yeah, he had to be trained to dance, though. I think I'm a hopeless cause, But he went with Denny Terrio and trained him how to dance for that interesting movie. So, yeah. But anyway, thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Happy
Evelyn.
birthday, Evelyn.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Happy 29th. That's when I met her. No, she was 31.
36.
No, I met you were younger than that. I think you
Wow.
were 32, 33. And Vanessa,
Toby?
good luck with your family. Is your mom still
you.
alive? I forgot to ask you that.
Yes,
That's
my mother's
wonderful.
still alive.
How's she
But
doing?
before,
Tell
she's
me.
doing okay. She's 81. She's doing okay. She's I want to say she's not doing the best, but she's hanging on. My daughter's still there. All my kids are there, so we're not. I wasn't prepared to deal with their trauma when I got out. So we're learning to coexist right now. I love my dysfunctional family. I love them. And we're working through some stuff. But before we say goodbye, I do want to mention that we are really going to be, I myself, and I know Evelyn, we have some girls that were very dear to us
Yes.
in Tallahassee. Gloria Palacios, who was sentenced to 40 years. Rita Peak, Tiffany Arnold, Starlet Kaiser,
Mary Bowman.
Mary Bowman. These are some women that we're going to be really, really trying to find a way.
Shiny too.
Shawnee Butler.
Shiny Butler, yes.
These women,
Yes.
they've been there for a minute. Rita, it has a life sentence.
She's be out.
Huh?
Rita, she's be out. Renita.
Yeah, Renita's
Rita.
out. Renita, but
Yeah,
Rita,
Renita.
Corethia Peak.
You're
Rita.
talking about Rita P. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Rita
It's
went-
Tiffany too.
Tiffany Arnold. I just want to mention them because I just can't forget about them. I can't. Every night when I go to bed, it haunts me. So I know I have to do when something bothers me that bad, I cannot just sit on it. I have to do something.
Yeah,
So-
and let me say something about yesterday. Mary Luz, she called me and she told me about the girl. She's from Colombia too. She
Mhm.
have a long time to do too, and she asked me if we can help her, and I tell her, let me try to talking about with my friends. Yeah, she's from Colombia too. It's a lot of people,
Janine Jean T.
Jenny, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Goodness.
You have a lot.
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys got work to do.
Yeah.
Well, the most important thing
Thank
is
you.
be a grandmother, right? That's what I said to Evelyn when she boarded
That's
the
what
plane.
I'm going home right now to
Do you
go
know
do.
that? Did you know that? I told her. I said, she said, thank you. I said, no, you go home and be a grandmother. That's the best thing you can do for your
Be a
kids.
grandmother, yeah. Never forget these words.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's my grandbaby. One of my grandbabies is she's at the house right now, and my phone's been blowing up since this podcast. And I know she wants me there, so I'm gonna be heading straight home from
Okay.
here.
All right, great. Thank everybody, and
Thank you.
we'll do this again pretty soon. Okay.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Thank you guys.
Damaris.
God bless
Ciao.
everybody. Have a good night.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Sorry. Okay.